Victory was within reach. Humanity had broken through the Dominion's defenses time and again, each victory bringing them closer to the final confrontation. The war room aboard the flagship Resolute buzzed with an energy that hadn't been felt in years, the electric anticipation of warriors who finally saw the light at the end of a very long, very dark tunnel. Commander Elena Carter stood before the holographic display, her weathered hands gripping the edge of the tactical table as streams of intelligence data cascaded across the blue-lit surface. Around her, the finest military minds humanity had to offer leaned in, their faces illuminated by the ghostly glow of what appeared to be salvation itself. "The Dominion supply lines are collapsing," reported Admiral Hayes, his voice carrying barely contained excitement. "Our deep reconnaissance units confirm it, their forward positions are being abandoned, their fleets are pulling back to core systems. After 15 years of this hell, we've finally got them on the run." Carter's steel-gray eyes traced the enemy retreat patterns, each red marker representing a Dominion stronghold that had suddenly gone dark. It was almost too good to be true. Almost. But the data was there, verified through multiple channels, cross-referenced and confirmed by their most trusted intelligence networks. "Ma'am," called out Lieutenant Morrison from the communications array, his young face bright with hope, "we're receiving transmissions from resistance cells deep in Dominion territory. They're reporting massive troop withdrawals, equipment being abandoned in place. The word from our embedded assets is that Dominion command is in complete disarray." The room erupted in subdued cheers and knowing nods. Carter felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with the scent of victory, but something deeper stirred within her, a personal vindication that had been years in the making. This war had taken everything from her: her husband Marcus, killed in the Battle of Kepler Station, her daughter Sarah, lost when the Dominion glassed New Geneva, countless friends and comrades who had paid the ultimate price for humanity's survival. But now, standing in this moment, surrounded by the promise of an end to the nightmare, Carter allowed herself to feel something she had forbidden for so long: hope. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice cutting through the celebration with commanding authority, "if our intelligence is accurate, we have a narrow window to deliver the killing blow. The Dominion stronghold at Nexus Prime, it's their key staging area for the inner systems. Take it, and we cut the head off the snake." The tactical display shifted, zooming in on a star system deep in what had been impregnable Dominion space just months ago. Now, according to their reports, it lay vulnerable, a prize waiting to be claimed by the bold. "The false dawn is over," Carter declared, her words carrying the weight of years of struggle. "Humanity's true victory begins now." But sometimes, even the brightest of victories is built on a lie. Deep in the shadows of space, far from the triumphant human fleet, the true architects of the coming battle watched and waited. The Dominion had not earned their reputation through brute force alone, they were masters of the long game, weavers of deception so intricate that their enemies often defeated themselves. Overlord Vexhan floated in his command chamber, his elongated form barely visible in the dim red light that his species preferred. Around him, holographic displays showed the exact same intelligence that the humans were celebrating, but from a very different perspective. Every abandoned outpost, every retreating fleet, every desperate transmission from supposed resistance fighters, all carefully orchestrated pieces of an elaborate trap. "The humans respond exactly as predicted," hissed his intelligence coordinator, Silthara. "Their emotional attachment to hope makes them remarkably easy to manipulate. Commander Carter, in particular, has proven most susceptible to our encouragements." The Dominion had spent months crafting this deception, using captured human communication protocols to seed false intelligence through every channel the humans trusted. They had sacrificed minor outposts, allowed small victories, created the perfect illusion of a crumbling enemy, all to bring humanity's fleet exactly where they wanted it. "And our asset within their command structure?" Vexhan inquired, his voice like silk over steel. "Performing admirably. Vice Admiral Harrison continues to provide real-time updates on their fleet movements and strategic planning. His conversion to our cause has been most beneficial." Vexhan's lipless mouth curved in what might have been a smile on a more familiar species. The humans' trust in their own people would be their undoing. They had no idea that their own vice admiral had been subjected to the Dominion's most advanced neural conditioning 2 years ago, not the crude mind control of their earlier attempts, but a subtle reshaping of loyalty and purpose that left the subject fully functional and unaware of their new allegiance. Humanity is riding a wave of success, Vexhan mused, but in the shadows, we weave our web of lies. It will take only one mistake, one misstep, to send their entire fleet into disaster. He turned to face the tactical display showing the Nexus Prime system. The trap is set. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a sight that would have inspired terror in any conventional enemy. 300 ships of the line, including 7 of humanity's precious dreadnoughts, supported by twice as many escorts and supply vessels. It was the largest single battle group humanity had fielded since the war began, a force capable of cracking worlds. Commander Carter stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching as her tactical officers processed the initial sensor sweeps. The Nexus Prime system spread before them like a three-dimensional map of opportunity. The Dominion stronghold orbited the 4th planet, its massive structure clearly visible even at this distance. "Ma'am," reported Commander Singh from the sensor station, "initial scans confirm intelligence reports. The orbital platforms around the stronghold are operating at minimal power. We're detecting less than 30% of expected defensive signatures." "What about their fleet?" Carter asked, though she thought she already knew the answer. "Sparse coverage, ma'am. Maybe 24 ships, mostly light cruisers and escorts. Nothing that poses a serious threat to our battle group." The bridge crew exchanged glances of barely contained excitement. After so many brutal battles, after so many Pyrrhic victories that cost more than they gained, they were finally looking at what every warrior dreams of, an easy win against a strategically vital target. But Elena Carter had survived 15 years of war by trusting her instincts, and something about this felt wrong. Too easy. Too clean. The Dominion had never been careless, never left such a valuable position so lightly defended. "Ma'am." Vice Admiral Harrison's voice cut through her thoughts. He stood at her shoulder, his familiar presence somehow less comforting than usual. "Shall I order the fleet to attack formation?" Carter studied the tactical display for a long moment, her mind racing through possibilities. The logical part of her brain insisted that the Dominion was finally showing the strain of a long war, that their resources were indeed stretched too thin. The evidence was overwhelming, confirmed by multiple sources, verified through every channel they trusted. But the warrior in her whispered warnings that she couldn't quite articulate. "Ma'am." Harrison pressed gently. "The fleet is waiting for orders." Carter looked around at the eager faces of her bridge crew, young men and women who had known nothing but war, who deserved the peace that victory would bring. She thought of Marcus, of Sarah, of all the ghosts that demanded she finish what they had started. "Signal the fleet," she commanded, her voice steady despite her doubts. "We go in hard and fast. Full battle formation, but keep the reserves ready. Something about this doesn't sit right with me." As humanity's greatest fleet moved toward what they believed would be their finest hour, the darkness between the stars began to shift and move. Stealth generators that had masked entire battle groups flickered off one by one, revealing the true scope of the Dominion's presence in the system. The victory that humanity had dreamed of came crashing down with a single moment of realization. The final battle wasn't a triumph, it was a carefully laid trap, and the Dominion had them cornered. The first sign of disaster came from the Valiant, one of the forward reconnaissance destroyers. Commander Torres's voice crackled over the comm with barely controlled panic. "Command, we've got massive energy signatures emerging from everywhere. Stealth fields are dropping all around us." Carter's blood turned to ice as her tactical display exploded with new contacts. Red icons materialized like deadly flowers blooming in a garden of death, dozens of Dominion battleships, hundreds of cruisers, and what appeared to be 3 of their dreaded Fortress-class dreadnoughts, each one capable of taking on half her fleet alone. "How many?" she whispered, though the computer was already calculating the terrible mathematics of their situation. 800+ contacts and rising, Singh reported, his voice hoarse with shock. Ma'am, we're outnumbered almost 3-1, and they've got superior positioning. We're caught in a crossfire formation. The trap had been perfect in its simplicity. The Dominion had used the system's asteroid field and gravity wells to mask their fleet, positioning their forces so that humanity's arrival vector would place them in the center of a carefully prepared killing ground. Every possible escape route was covered, every tactical advantage neutralized before the battle even began. "Signal all ships," Carter commanded, her training taking over even as her heart hammered against her ribs. "Emergency scatter pattern. We need to break their formation before they can." Her words were cut off as the Dominion fleet opened fire. The space around Nexus Prime erupted in a hellstorm of energy beams, particle cannons, and missile salvos that turned the void into a light show of destruction. The Dauntless, one of humanity's dreadnoughts, staggered under a concentrated barrage from 6 Dominion battleships, her shields flaring and collapsing in a matter of seconds. "Ma'am!" Lieutenant Morrison shouted over the thunder of incoming fire hammering their own shields. "Priority transmission from Admiral Hayes on the Indomitable." Hayes's face appeared on the main screen, his command bridge behind him a chaos of sparks and emergency lighting. "Elena, we've been had. This was all planned, every piece of intelligence, every report, it's all been feeding us exactly what they wanted us to believe." Even as he spoke, the Indomitable shuddered under a direct hit from a Dominion plasma lance. The transmission flickered and died as humanity's second-largest dreadnought began listing to starboard, her port armor glowing white-hot from the massive breach in her hull. Carter watched in horror as more ships began to die around her. The Wellington, the Prometheus, the New Beijing, names that represented not just ships but entire crews, thousands of human lives snuffed out in seconds by an enemy that had played them like children with toy soldiers. "How?" she whispered, the question torn from her soul. "How did they know? How did they get this close to our intelligence networks?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Vice Admiral Harrison stepped forward, his demeanor subtly changed, the familiar warmth in his eyes replaced by something cold and alien. "Because, Elena," he said softly, "they've been listening through me." The bridge fell silent except for the continued thunder of the battle raging around them. Carter turned to stare at Harrison, the man she had trusted with her life countless times, the officer who had served beside her for over a decade. "Tom," she breathed, the name catching in her throat. Harrison's face showed no emotion as he continued. "For 2 years, I've been providing them with every detail of our operations, our intelligence networks, our strategic planning. The neural conditioning they performed on me was thorough. I retained my personality, my memories, my skills, but my loyalty now belongs to the Dominion." Carter's hand moved instinctively toward her sidearm, but Harrison made no threatening moves. He simply stood there, watching her with the detached interest of a scientist observing a laboratory specimen. "You're lying," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "Tom, you're my friend, you've been fighting beside me since the Battle of Rigel 7, where I was captured and presumed killed." "Yes, Elena, I remember. But the Tom Harrison who died in that Dominion prison camp was human. The being that returned to you 6 months later was something else entirely." The truth hit them harder than any weapon. The final blow to their pride was not delivered by the Dominion, it came from within. The false hope had been planted by one of their own. Around them, the battle continued its inexorable course toward disaster. The Resolute shuddered as her shields finally collapsed under sustained fire, and Carter realized with crystal clarity that they had perhaps minutes before the ship was destroyed. "All remaining ships," she broadcast on the emergency frequency, her voice carrying across the dying fleet, "this is Carter. Execute Emergency Protocol 7. Scatter and run. Save what you can. The war isn't over." As the remaining human vessels began their desperate attempt to escape the killing ground, Carter found herself face to face with the man who had been her closest advisor, her trusted friend, and, she now understood, the architect of humanity's greatest defeat. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the sounds of her dying ship. Harrison tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question from multiple angles. Because the Dominion showed me the truth, Elena. Humanity cannot win this war. Your species fights with passion and courage, but you lack the unity of purpose that victory requires. The Dominion offers something better: order, purpose, peace through strength. In time, you'll understand. The bridge lights flickered and died as the Resolute's power core took a direct hit. In the red glow of emergency lighting, Carter saw Harrison activate a personal transport beacon, a Dominion device that would extract him safely from the dying ship. "Goodbye, Elena," he said as the transport beam began to envelope him. "I hope you survive what's coming. The Dominion could use someone of your capabilities." And then he was gone, leaving Carter alone with the dying remnants of humanity's hope. The Resolute limped into the hidden base at Sanctuary Station with half her hull breached and most of her crew dead. She was one of only 43 ships that had escaped the massacre at Nexus Prime, less than 7% of the force that had jumped into the system with such high hopes just days before. Commander Elena Carter sat in her quarters, staring at the casualty reports that painted a picture of devastation almost too complete to comprehend. 257 ships lost, including all 7 dreadnoughts. Over 300,000 personnel killed in action, captured, or missing. The entire 3rd, 7th, and 9th battle groups, wiped from existence in a matter of hours. But the numbers, horrific as they were, barely captured the true scope of the disaster. The Dominion hadn't just destroyed humanity's largest fleet, they had shattered the illusion of inevitable victory that had sustained the war effort. The psychological impact would ripple through every human world, every remaining fleet, every soldier who had believed that liberation was at hand. A soft chime announced a visitor. Carter looked up to see Admiral Hayes entering her quarters, his left arm in a bioregeneration sleeve, his face bearing the haunted look of a man who had watched too many friends die. "Elena," he said quietly, settling into the chair across from her. "How are you holding up?" Carter almost laughed at the absurdity of the question. How was she holding up? She had led humanity's finest into a trap, watched the majority of them die, discovered that one of her closest friends had been an enemy agent for years, and now faced the prospect of trying to explain to High Command how their greatest opportunity had become their worst defeat. "The intelligence networks," she said instead of answering his question. "How compromised are they?" "If Harrison had access for 2 years." "We're conducting a complete review," Hayes replied. "But Elena, we have to face the possibility that everything we think we know might be wrong. Every source, every contact, every piece of intelligence, it could all be part of their manipulation." The implications were staggering. If the Dominion had been feeding them false information for years, then humanity's entire strategic picture might be based on lies. They could be far weaker than they realized, or the enemy could be far stronger. The war itself might be going very differently than they believed. "There's something else," Hayes continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "During the battle, our psychics reported something unusual. They detected what felt like direct mental intrusion attempts, not the crude mind control we've seen before, but something far more sophisticated. The Dominion may be moving beyond conventional warfare into something worse." Carter closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a burial shroud. The Dominion had won more than a battle at Nexus Prime, they had proven that they could manipulate humanity's greatest strength, their hope, and turn it into their greatest weakness. "What are our orders from High Command?" she asked. Hayes handed her a sealed data pad. "Immediate recall of all offensive operations. Full defensive posture across all fronts. And Elena, they want you to prepare a full tactical briefing on psychological warfare countermeasures. It seems the Dominion is teaching us that the war for human survival isn't just about ships and weapons anymore." As Carter activated the data pad and began reading through humanity's new reality, she realized that the battle was over, but the war was far from won. Humanity had been deceived, and now, the Dominion would begin a new phase of warfare, one that would take more than just their bodies. They would try to break their minds. But Elena Carter had not survived 15 years of war by giving up when things looked darkest. As she began to formulate new strategies, new countermeasures, new ways to fight an enemy that could twist truth itself into a weapon, she felt something stirring within her that the Dominion had tried to crush but failed to destroy: determination. The Dominion had won the battle of lies. But humanity had learned a painful lesson. The war was not over, it was changing, and soon, it would be humanity's turn to play the game of deception. In the depths of space, both sides began to prepare for a conflict that would be fought not just with ships and guns, but with minds and souls, truth and lies, hope and despair. The greatest battle for humanity's survival was yet to come, and it would be won or lost not in the void between stars, but in the space between thoughts. The real war was just beginning.